From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Stretching your food dollar to a healthy limit.
I'm Charles Denny, learning to shop wisely for healthy foods. You can eat well on a tight budget. It's a Tennessee State University Extension program here in Memphis.
Getting the most out of your ground may start with finding a baseline.
Start with an achievable yield goal.
As we continue to help you flip your soil, plus the latest when it comes to trade talk.
And we have secured real, economically meaningful wins.
Why some ag groups say much more needs to be done. Right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when experience meets expertise. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Biden administration's top trade official is touting what she says are real economically meaningful wins regarding ag trade. However, some industry groups have concerns about what they see as a lack of a trade agenda. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, lots of different opinions right now when it comes to what's seen as success with ag trade.
No doubt, Clinton. If you measure success just by export data, so far in the first quarter of fiscal year 2024, the U.S. is running a trade deficit of $330 million. And USDA is projecting a deficit of over $31 billion for the entire fiscal year. Now, this doesn't exactly match with the progress on trade the administration claimed at the USDA Ag Outlook Forum. Ambassador Tai touted trade victories like tariff reductions on 10 commodities in India, a new beef safeguard deal, and U.S. ethanol market access in Japan, plus reopening South Africa's poultry market.
Over the past 3 years, we have seen the highest levels of agricultural exports and record levels of farm income. We have been working hard to open markets for U.S. products, and we have secured real, economically meaningful wins.
Plus, they're enforcing trade agreements like USMCA on dairy with Canada and GMO corn with Mexico, which could harm U.S. producers.
And this is why last August, the United States established a dispute settlement panel under the USMCA to look at this issue. We will do everything we can to resolve these concerns.
However, she says only 7.5% of U.S. farms secured 89% of last year's record income, and the administration wants to fix that.
So we are charging full steam ahead. We are continuing negotiations with our partners in the Indo-Pacific and Africa. We are laser focused on deepening our existing relationships and creating new ones.
Still, many farm groups are expressing frustration that the administration needs to get more aggressive on trade.
And I think we really need to make our voice heard in Washington, D.C. and saying we need some free trade agreements. We need to lower tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers. We need a louder voice so that we can get market access to new countries.
He says the U.S. hasn't inked any new FTAs for years and is losing market share after withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
You know, you had Japan and the Philippines were in there. And so right now here we don't have free trade agreements with those countries. And so there's barriers that other competing countries don't have. And so I think that really the focus needs to come back on, exporting agricultural products to be very beneficial to rural America.
And meat exports, he says, are the best way to add value to lower priced grains. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Could the Biden administration be close to announcing significant changes when it comes to ethanol? Reuters reports the administration could soon announce an adjustment to its scientific modeling for ethanol, one that it says will show the fuel is less effective at reducing greenhouse gas emissions than previously estimated. Now, the adjustment could make it more difficult for ethanol producers to take part in tax credits aimed at sustainable aviation fuel. However, there still would be a potential avenue for ethanol producers to qualify for the credits if they work with corn growers that practice sustainable farming methods. Reuters says the change would reflect what sources say is a more precise consideration of the environmental consequences and would also incentivize climate-smart farming practices such as no-till farming and cover crops. A White House spokesperson telling Reuters no final decision has been made. Parts of the West Coast continue to be in the bullseye when it comes to moisture. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with an update.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of systems that we're watching, we've talked about this before, with a ridge of high pressure. What ends up happening is we squash the jet stream along the coast. That includes the East Coast, and that also includes the West Coast. And when I say squash, it's like a sponge. You squeeze it, that moisture is going to come out. So watch what happens Tuesday into Wednesday with the ridge building back up into the middle part of the country. You got streams of moisture once again swirling into portions of California. Rain for the lower terrain and feet of snow up in the higher terrain. This is Wednesday at 6 a.m. It does look like with this ridge in place, we'll see another potent system come down and work up to the north as well. And that's going to be going into the weekend. So you have maybe 4 days in between these two systems. Again, there's Thursday at 9 p.m. And here's why you should always give plows and salt trucks a little extra space. We talk about this all the time. Dashcam video is out of Oakland County, Michigan. That is actually where I grew up. Watch as a county plow works to clear the slushy road and then a truck gets a little too close. County road officials saying this should serve as a reminder to give trucks room to work. In other words, don't crowd the plow. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Happening right now, millions of people along the West Coast are bracing for flash floods, landslides, and evacuations as an atmospheric river bears down, promising multiple days of rain-related alerts and risks. Laura Aguirre has an update from soggy California.
The term atmospheric river is becoming mainstream for Californians. Forecasters say another excessive rain system will soak much of the state through Tuesday, dumping up to 10 inches in some remote areas and touching off flash floods and landslides on ground already soft from a similar round of storms earlier this month.
We have a tree like this in front of our house, and so just, a little nervous there.
Many Sacramento residents wonder if they'll be next to suffer property destruction in the recent steady stream of storms. The damage tab in that city alone reported by officials as $12 million before any possible high winds, large hail, or tornadoes in the area Monday.
The big price tag right now was the damage done to the electricity grid.
Thousands remain without power across the state this hour. Fire crews in Ventura County working to manually channel floodwaters away from nearby homes. It's a weather cycle that's keeping many contractors in the state busy.
Within a week or two after every large windstorm, rain or not, we start to get the calls.
This latest atmospheric river is predicted to dump around 5 more feet of fresh snow onto the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains, with the system pushing more of the same north and east across several states into Wednesday. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Laura Aguirre.
Flip Your Soil on AgDay is brought to you by ESN. Hear how farmer Heath Cottrell achieved award-winning corn yields with ESN Smart Nitrogen. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com.
One of the biggest keys for farmers flipping their soil and achieving higher yields is fertility. However, with higher fertilizer prices and widespread drought the last couple of years, some farmers scaled back on fertility plans. This year, prices are lower and more fertilizer was applied last fall. Agronomists say as spring planting approaches, farmers need to understand the baseline nutrients in their soil, including nitrogen credits.
It really starts with that soil test. We really have to understand what we're dealing with in the soil before we apply something expensive such as fertilizers. So it really gives us an idea of where to allocate our nutrient dollars best.
Andy says farmers should match their fertility plan with the yield goals on their farm.
Start with an achievable yield goal. Look at what you've done the last 3 to 5 years, what you can produce, and then do you want to increase that yield goal by X number of bushels or X percent, and really fertilizing for that yield goal.
Gehling also recommends in-season monitoring of nutrient levels through tissue sampling so farmers can feed the plants when they need it for optimal production. All right, coming up, we'll look at the long-term drought and what it could mean for prices this spring. And later, a company aims to grow dairy feed indoors. A look at the process and the benefits this new forage farm could have after weather. have a new outlook from USDA when it comes to planting, but how could a new drought forecast factor in when it comes to prices? Michelle is back to talk it over with Rich Nelson in Markets Now.
Joining us with Markets is Rich Nelson with AgDay, and let's start looking forward to the 2024 planting season, especially because we have built some pretty big yield projections in here to the forecast for 2024, but will the weather support that, Rich?
Now, we do have some threats already in place. We already have net soil moisture deficits here for much of Iowa, much of southeast Nebraska, portions of Missouri, portions of Minnesota as well. So that's one story. Now, we know that typically we don't need to get too excited about weather until the month of July specifically, but can we build a little premium? Can we maybe stabilize these markets? That's a very good point here. And keep in mind here, the summer weather forecast, agreed to with both government as well as private sources, might suggest western Corn Belt and plains-based dryness in these months ahead still.
Yeah, will it be difficult to get to 181 bushel per acre corn and 52 bushel per acre soybeans with that summer forecast showing some drought areas continuing?
And that's the big question. Now, one problem we have here is with our large carrying stocks, we need to really change the story. In fact, to have a movement back on the futures to $5 and to stay there, to stay at $5, you've got to have about a 10% yield hit across the nation for corn, for instance. That would be the second worst yield hit in 25 years. So I suggest we can have a rally. We can have a good spring rebound, so to speak. But keep in mind, for getting this market to stay at higher prices, it's more or less going to be pushing a boulder up a hill, so to speak, in very short term here.
And we also have to get the funds to quit pushing the short side of the market, both old and new crop. And what do you see that could change that?
And that's a big question here. One positive side. Let's have a good discussion here, at least on the corn end of things here. Since February 5th, we have seen open interest decline. So this last leg of lower corn prices is actually from people getting out. So that's a good starting discussion for maybe some type of low in these days ahead here for corn. I don't have the same good news for soybeans. We still have rising open interest all the way through Thursday. So people are still getting in with soybeans and still confidently selling the soybean side in the grand scheme of things.
Thanks so much, Rich Nelson with AgDay, and we'll have more AgDay coming up.
Looking at the jet stream coming up this week, and something that we revisited last week and just a little bit ago is the ridge of high pressure developing over 2/3 of the United States. So again, this is on Tuesday. What you'll see are the height lines, the lines in white, scoot back up here to the north, and then these pockets of low pressure systems on each coast. Now, the one difference between the East Coast and the West Coast, besides where they're located, is low pressure systems, when they develop on the East Coast, they go out to sea with very little impacts unless it develops back over here towards the west. On the West Coast, these low pressure systems develop over the Pacific and come ashore. That is why our focus has been on California this week, having to do with multiple low pressure systems, two to be exact, coming ashore and bringing even more rain to Southern California. Now, as we get into Friday, the ridge of high pressure starts to break down. But as I've talked about before, that ridge is strong and in place, which means this is going to be more of a shallow dive to the south and working to the east, rather than a low pressure system or trough developing back out here to the west and working across the United States. That limits the coverage. It also limits the strength and impacts of surface low pressure systems across the country, something that we've seen all winter long. It also limits the amount of cold air that can come down on the backside of the systems. That's why most of our cold air shots have been very short before warming back up. And that is the trend we're going into the weekend and next week. You see another ridge trying to develop back down to the south and working back up here to the north. A little bit more zonal Saturday and Sunday, possibly even into Monday of next week with the jet stream and this overall flow. You may see this cutoff low again circulating right off on the west coast, which is going to bring in some more moisture on the west coast as well. Again, there's a look at jet stream coming up on Saturday. Millville, mostly sunny, high around 44 degrees, low of 26. How about Alma, Oklahoma? Mostly sunny, high of 73 degrees, low of 39. Huntingdon, not with the T, with the D. Huntingdon, Tennessee, high of 63.
The talking is over, the proposals are in. Could a change to the milk marketing order be next? And later, learning to make healthy food choices, whether at the farmer's market or the grocery store. We're off to Tennessee, in the country. USDA has concluded its hearings on the federal milk marketing order, and now it must consider more than 12,000 pages of testimony as it looks to modernize the program. The National Milk Producers Federation says the key to modernizing the program is a comprehensive approach, one that respects the entire dairy industry.
You can't look at the federal order system, having not been updated in 20 years, and not address all facets of the industry. Right? You can't say in good faith that Class 1 differentials need to be updated because costs have gone up without also conceding the fact that make allowances need to go up for the same reason. So we took that holistic approach that is going to help move the industry forward together.
Association Chief Economist Mike Brown says his group believes the dairy industry has fundamentally changed since 2008 when the previous FMMO revisions were made, and that the current pricing formulas need to be amended to reflect new market dynamics. Now, it's reported 40 proposals were submitted by stakeholders to USDA for consideration. There may be a new model for dairy feed production: indoor feed centers. Dairyherd.com reporting 2 companies have entered into agreements to provide forage to California dairies by producing fresh grain sprouts. Forever Feed Technologies will be producing automated sprouted grain, while a company called HydroGreen will produce a similar hydroponically grown product. The idea here: the feed is produced in a climate-controlled indoor environment and can be grown and harvested 365 days a year. Now, the companies say the process uses less water, land, fuel, fertilizer, and crop protection. It also says the forage it grows is lower in sugar and starch, improving the pH balance in rumen, cutting methane emissions by 25%. Cost of the feed is estimated at about $150 per ton. Well, good food doesn't always mean good nutrition. We'll learn to pick healthy foods with shoppers in Tennessee next. In a grocery store or farmer's market, how do you know what items might be the most nutritious? As Charles Denny reports, the University of Tennessee and Tennessee State University Extension are teaching people how to shop smartly for food.
A mural with a message. A large painting that shows a healthy diet is doable for a few dollars. An artist painted this wall on the side of a Memphis restaurant to market the TSU Extension program Shop, Cook, Eat. The display is to encourage people to sign up and learn more through social media and podcast. Ebony Lott with TSU Extension teaches the class, working with hundreds of Shelby County residents.
You learn in the class of, one, you never want to shop hungry when you go into the store. Always checking the cabinets before you go to the grocery store, and have that list. Have your grocery list, stick to it when you're going to the grocery store, and read those food labels too as well.
The full name of this program is Shop, Cook, Eat Within Your Budget. No doubt many people are concerned about high grocery prices these days, and a key lesson here is to buy healthy but affordable foods. About a mile from the mural, you'll find the South Memphis Farmers Market, part of a historic neighborhood central to America's civil rights movement. Here, managers like Eddie Walsh support the TSU program, hosting cooking demonstrations and keeping prices low so people can buy healthy produce, much of it grown on the market's own nearby farm.
We actually sometimes we'll put like little displays over here, and we'll try to make it where you can find enough food that you can eat for under like $12. We will find different things, and we try to make sure that they're healthy.
UT Extension has a program that's reached nearly 5,000 people in 11 counties.
The Shop Smart Tennessee program, what we really try to do is to make the healthy choice the easy choice for consumers.
Chris Need with Family and Consumer Sciences says Extension teams with grocery and convenience stores with a focus on changing the food shopping environment.
Many times the stores that we go in and partner with are already offering healthy items. They're offering healthy items at a very reasonable price when you compare it to the other items in the store. And so it has been just a matter of really pointing out what's available, enhancing the stock that's available.
These extension programs will continue to serve urban and rural areas with information to help people eat well, stay healthy, and watch their bank account. This mural stands as a reminder that resources are available, a connection to a community. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.